Hey my good friend, Sam Haymart with Test Driven TV. This is the 2022 Cadillac CT5 V Blackwing. That means this is the fastest, most powerful Cadillac ever built. And we're test driving it right now. The 2022 Cadillac CT5 V Blackwing is the top of the line, most expensive, most powerful, fastest Cadillac sedan, period. This prices out as optioned at about $104,000 with all of the carbon fiber inside and out, the interior options, and a lot of the other upgrades that have been done here. Under the hood is a 6.2 liter supercharged LT4 V8, the most powerful version of it yet at 668 horsepower. And here in the CT5, it's available with a 6-speed manual. And you can also get the automatic if you want it. This engine is just bonkers, and we'll get to that here in a minute. Looking at the styling, a much more aggressive styled front end than you're going to find on a standard CT5. Look at all the carbon fiber there. This has got all of the carbon fiber optioned along the top of the grille and that lower splitter down there. Look at that. That's a curb getter. I'm warning you, you got to really be careful with this thing driving it around in real life. But that does really help with the downforce out there at speed, which is a good thing. This car can go over 200 miles an hour, so says Cadillac. And so coming around the corner, you can see that this has 19-inch wheels and big, huge Brembo brakes, front and rear. And option on this were the bronze calipers. You can choose which color calipers to get on this. You've got a number of choices on the option list. Staggered wheels too. This has 275 section rubber up front. And when you come down the side, you can see carbon fiber lower rocker splitters that just really light up in the sun. From this angle, you can really see how these wider tires and wheels at the back really give this thing an aggressive stance. Wider wheel, 11 inches, wider tire, 305 section, and it just really wraps into a rear hindquarter that's nicely tapered and dressed up with all this carbon fiber. That rear deck has that wing on it, and the wing is right on the edge of being too much, but not quite there. It really fits the potential of this car, and it looks very nicely done on that deck lid. Down in the lower fascia, lots of carbon fiber there with a splitter element and big dual exhaust tips that are functional, no less. Cadillac doesn't play around. Now, there is some playing around going on here with the design. This, for instance, is not actually a window. It's just a design element. I don't really like it when they do stuff like that. It's not pure, but alas, that's just part of design today. At least the exhaust tips are the real thing. The interior here on the CT5 Blackwing is really where most of the option money was spent. This has the highest level leather interior and carbon fiber trim package, and as such, probably one of the nicest Cadillac interiors I've ever sat in. And that's because a lot of the hard plastics and regular plastic trims that you'd normally see and touch in here are covered with soft trims, stitched trims, leather, and carbon fiber. The seats here are semi-aniline leather, very nicely quilted and stitched, as you can see. They're power adjustable. They have both heating and ventilation, and they also have the massage function. I find them extremely comfortable and supportive, and especially if you're going to be driving this on the track or just driving hard anywhere, they really keep you planted, which is a good thing. And they're very firm. They're not the type of soft, cushy seats that you might expect in a Lexus or even some Mercedes-Benz models. On the backs of these seats are carbon fiber covers, and if you look carefully, there's a lot of detail too. Blackwing logos, a lot of Easter eggs throughout this car. As I sit here and look forward, this has a fully digital instrument cluster that you can customize and set the information sets that you want to have. A very well done instrument cluster with good graphics on it, and the steering wheel. More hidden things. On the backs of these steering wheels where the paddle shifters would be when you get the manual are etched maps of both Milford and the Warren GM Proving Grounds. You sort of have to look around to see those. Pretty cool little detail, hidden things. The steering wheel has buttons on it for controlling the various drive modes, very similar to what Mercedes does. Also on the lower half of the steering wheel is more carbon fiber trim, but it's got the serial number for the car. And this one, 86-276. So if that's your car, this is your car. The center stack is actually very well laid out. All the HVAC controls across and secondary controls along the console. More carbon fiber trim that you can see here. 6-speed manual shifter, and it has a nice pattern that is a 3D printed style emblem on the top. Cup holders off to the side. Storage down in here, not that big. Not the biggest, but there is a place right here to put your phone so that you can see what's going on with it while it's sitting there charging. The rear seat of the CT5 is indeed a little bit more roomier than the CT4, which has a shorter wheelbase. I do find that we are sitting in a sedan. Obviously, the seating position is a little bit lower and you're more down in this vehicle. And this seat, though, does have quite a bit of side support. It allows you to feel like you're held in it, so it's not so much like you're sitting on a flat bench and scrunched down at the same time. These seats ahead of me are set for my height, about 5'8", with my tennis shoes on. As you can see, I've got plenty of leg room here. Headroom, I've got about 2.5 to 3 inches above my head back here. I really like looking at these carbon fiber seat backs, and there's V logos back here, a lot of little Easter eggs in this car. Vents down at the center console. Love that here in Arizona when it's 100+ degrees like today. And it's nice to be able to have air in your face when you're in the back seat. There's also a 12-volt port and a USB charging port down at the bottom. These seats do fold down in a 60-40 split so that you can put long items in through your trunk. Pretty sizable trunk, I will say. And if you look underneath it, you're not going to find a spare tire here. Most high-performance cars don't. A fix-a-flat kit over to the side of that. The 12-volt battery is actually in the trunk underneath the plastic cover off to the side. I really do like what they've done here with this interior. Like I say, one of the nicest interiors I've sat in a Cadillac. And it's just because it feels its price. Because of all the trims, because of all the extra optional stuff here, it doesn't feel like a really nice Chevy, if you know what I'm saying. So this interior gets 5 out of 5 stars. The human interface and infotainment system in this car isn't necessarily what you might expect in a $100,000 car, meaning a lot of the competitors now have gone to much larger screens, but it is fully featured. Here, when it comes to sound, this has a fully featured 10-speaker AKG audio system. Honestly, I've never heard that brand name before, but it sounds exceptional. It does, of course, have Bluetooth connectivity, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. Those are wireless. It has AM, FM, Sirius XM, and it just works well. The graphics here are very good. Visibility is good. There is some glare when you look at it from an angle in certain sunlight, but using this is very easy to understand. GM has a way of understanding how people think and work, and you don't have to really learn a lot in using this system. The menus react very quickly to your touch, and it all just does what you expect it to do. It has a 360-degree monitor and also a forward-facing camera for when you're maneuvering in tight parking spaces, which is very important, I might add, with that expensive carbon fiber splitter at the front. It's nice to press a button and see where the front of that lip is when you're pulling into a parking space. That alone is a feature that you need to have on this car. I'm very happy with this in spite of the fact that it doesn't have the largest screen that many of the competitors have. It works just as well as they do. This infotainment system gets 5 out of 5 stars. Before we get out of the drive, let's talk quick about what's under the hood, because there's a lot going on here. This is the most powerful version of the General Motors LT4 supercharged V8 yet. This one is 668 horsepower with 659 pound-feet of torque. And here it's made it to a 6-speed manual transmission. 10-speed automatic is available. On the front of the Eaton 1.7 liter supercharger, you can see a plate. These are hand-built engines at the Bowling Green factory. This is an engine we have done a complete under the hood tour of on our partner channel TDTV Garage, and that is linked down below in the information section as well as at the end of our video. Very cool thing if you're into the nuts and bolts. All right, now for the part most of you have been waiting for, the drive. Got all that other crap out of the way. Now let's see how this thing sounds and how fast it goes and all of those things. Well, obviously, this is a car, I'm just going to put it right out there, this is a squirrely car. Rear-wheel drive, 600 plus horsepower. It doesn't have all-wheel drive like the Mercedes-Benz, and, well, a lot of people complain because it makes you take all-wheel drive, but it's a good thing because it puts all that power to the ground and it doesn't get edgy. But edgy is what makes American cars so much fun. right? So, cattle guard, the question I always like to ask in these test drives, of course, is how does it go? So let me come to a complete stop here. We're out in the middle of nowhere, not a single soul around, and we're gonna see how bad I can launch this thing. Woo! And 60. And 100. Woo! Well, let me slow this thing down. We got a corner coming up. This thing's nuts, man. And did you hear that sound? You pull out of a corner here. Woo! Daddy likes. Now, let me slow down and get sane a minute before I talk. This thing's got explosive power, and I mean, boom, okay? This thing just blasts. It blasts the wheels right out from underneath the back of this car, and it gets all crazy on you. You really need to be on your toes if you're gonna drive this thing fast and launch it. And I wasn't even really trying that hard. That was a very soft launch for me, okay? I'm just not a drag racer, but I didn't kill it either. So, great power. The fact that we've got a manual here is sublime. I'm so glad they offer it this way. The 10-speed automatic's great. Now this does 0 to 60 with the manual in 3.6 seconds, 3.4 seconds with the automatic. It actually does a better job because it takes the human element out. You got more gears. So all of those things really make this powertrain great. And the thing about the supercharger versus turbos like on the Germans is that the power is instantaneous. You mash the pedal and this thing just, boom, it gives you that power right now. You don't have that softness and the lag associated with turbos. You mash the pedal on this, woo! And even at 75 miles an hour, this thing gets squirrely because that power is immediate. And the drive-by-wire throttle on this is tuned such that it just gives it to you, man. It doesn't make you go, oh crap, the computer's between me and this engine. No. Woo. You feel like you've got a cable going on. And I love that. That makes this car just totally worth the money. But I need to slow down again because 100 miles an hour is not a good place to be. Well, it kind of is. So fuel economy, no, we're not talking about that. This thing sucks gas. It just does. I'm not even gonna, it was on the graphic, okay? So there, if you wanna see it. I didn't even look to see what the fuel economy was this week with this car. Don't need to know, okay? Doesn't have auto start stop. That is perfect because a car like this should never have that. That's absurd. Okay, I'm just doing happy talk now. This powertrain gets 5 out of 5 stars. So we know this thing's got lots of power and a great motor under the hood, but what does the chassis do about all this power? Well, I'm happy to say this chassis manages it exceptionally well, in spite of the fact that it gets a little squirrely when you really press it, but that's the power talking, man. We have got McPherson struts with dual ball joints up front, multi-link rear suspension, and all of the upgrades you expect with all of this power. Bigger tires and wheels, massive Brembo brakes, and of course stiffer springs, anti-roll bars, dampers. Now the dampers on this Magnetic Ride 4, which is latest generation of the automatically adjusting dampers. Now these are great because you can put them on auto and they'll ride nice and cushy most of the time. And when you start dialing this thing up, mashing the pedals, turning this thing hard, it'll stiffen that suspension up right away and give you the kind of control you need with this much power. You can also tie it to your drive modes, of which this has plenty. Race modes, track, sport, all of it. It's got everything you want in terms of drive modes. But with these big tires and wheels, this thing really holds tight. Lateral acceleration, 1.01 G, that's pretty good. And it just feels good on the road. It's got a high quality, very precise steering feel. It feels solid. It really responds well to your inputs. It doesn't have too soft an edge. In fact, it's quite edgy. I just love the way this thing responds to your inputs. Very much as good as Mercedes-Benz and BMW in that respect. Now, road noise, a little on the higher side, 67.6 on our 70-mile-an-hour cruise test. Big tires and wheels. But this is just a sublime car to spend the day with. This is a high-performance car that won't beat you to death and make you tired. This chassis gets 5 out of 5 stars. I gotta tell you folks, driving this car is really an amazing experience. It's worth every single dollar you spend to get to this place. But let me tell you one thing before we finish talking with value, and that is that this is a car that really demands respect. And by that I mean, if you're gonna drive this car and really let loose with it, be careful, because as a person that spent decades driving cars on open tracks, very fast cars just as fast as this, as a person who used to race cars when I was very young, you know, I'm an experienced driver. I know how to drive a car fast. This car scares the living shit out of me, if I'm honest. This much power, this much torque, rear wheel drive only, and this thing will really let you get squirrely, and it doesn't take very much. So I'm just putting that out there. This is not a car to give to your teenager, all right? This is not a car for the passively skilled driver. You don't buy this car and drive it unless you go take a class or something. I'm serious. This is a car that demands respect. So all that PSA aside, value, $104,000 and some changes tested, base price $84,000. What do we compare against here? In my opinion, we're E63S AMG, we're BMW M5. We're right in the same ballpark in both cases, but this is bargain price by comparison. Yeah, 104 grand's a lot of money, but you'll spend 135, 140 and even up on the Germans if you option them similarly. So I put value here very high, 5 out of 5 stars for value. Yeah, even though it's a lot of money. When you put that in with everything we've already talked about, we're at 5 stars for the review. Excellent. Yeah, definitely worth a look if this is what you're after. So there you go. Now, if you like the video you just saw, see your latest one right there, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel right down there.